What is going on, guys? It's Pat on the shop. Tonight I wanted to clear up some things with the Vortec rocker arm, the geometry, some of the issues you run into with running either stock rockers, self-aligning rocker arms, and a few other things like that that I know people have questions about. It's super important to check when you're using offset keepers or offset retainers, beehive springs, anything like that, that you have enough tip sticking out on the tip of your valve sticking out that the self-aligning rocker arm is only contacting the tip of the valve and not touching the keepers or the retainer. As you can see the difference here, this is an aftermarket retainer, still stock keepers, not offset keepers. If we were using offset keepers in this situation to add some more spring height, we would be in trouble, because you can see that we're already, even with the stock rocker arm, there's not a lot of tip there compared to the stock retainer. This really lies as a very important check when you're doing higher lift and you're using a roller tip rocker arm or a full roller rocker arm. You'll notice that it's going to get closer, and you actually see the wear indicator or the wear pattern here of someone not using or not checking properly when they put these retainers in the rocker arms, and it was actually pushing on the retainer, but I got lucky. The motor didn't blow before I was able to pull it apart and actually check what was there. So here I'm going to show you when you're having your rocker arm to retainer clearance and what you want to do to check that. So you want to have at least a minimum of 10 thou clearance. More is better, but I'm going to say minimum of 10 thou. But 15-20 thou would be ideal, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So I'm going to check this on an intake valve, because what you'll find is the intake valve will be your issue for clearance, because you actually have 30 thou more, about 29 or 30 thou more tip length on the exhaust valve on a Vortec head. So usually when you're going to have an issue with clearance, it's going to be on your intake valve. So right here in between, you want to check, I'm going to just push this down just to make it easier to hold everything together, because I don't have a tester spring in there. But this is where the issue lies. You want to make sure that at any point there's no way that there's going to be any interference, try to hold that straight, between the retainer and the keeper. Or sorry, I should say the retainer and the rocker arm. So this one will be good, and like I said, usually it's not the stamped steel ones you'll have an issue with. It's the like the roller tip or the full roller rocker arms that have a little bit more of an indent there. But this one is fine. That's just how you check. And if you do find, and you also want to check when it's open throughout the whole sweep, because you'll find it'll change as the valve goes down. Usually the issue is when it's fully open. That's when it, but not always. Sometimes it depends on the rocker arm style. To correct that, what I've done is, I know a lot of manufacturers don't like that, but I've actually filed these down a little bit on like the roller tip ones, just to help with clearance. Usually you have to file the back just a little bit to get that, but I typically run valves that haven't been ground down. If you've had the end of the valve tip ground down, it's going to make that clearance less and make it harder for you to get that clearance that you need. Another thing is, sometimes you can put a slightly longer push rod, might help, but you also don't want to go too far to screw up your geometry and keep that rocker arm centered on the tip of the valve. I've heard of some guys using a lash cap. I've never done that. That's not really what a lash cap's for, and I think you might run into issues with fitting the lash cap in between the self-centering rocker arms. So I've never done that, so I can't say for sure. But what I've done when it's an issue, and like I said, usually only the intake valve, is I've just filed the rocker arm just a little bit to get that clearance needed, so you don't have any issues there. Another thing you might be wondering with your Vortec heads, being if you're on a budget and you want to put more lift into your motor, and you're debating if you're going to use the self-aligning rocker arms, the stock ones. Well, the thing is, you're very limited to lift with the stock rocker arms because they're not what you call long slot, and what that is that this bottom slot is deeper and longer to allow more travel of the rocker arm. So you're very limited. The safe number, I'm gonna put a number out, but it's in a perfect world. You know, you have your push rod length is perfect. You know, your lash isn't over adjusted or anything like that. Your preload and your, so what a safe number, if everything's perfect, don't hold me to it, on the stock rocker arm, the maximum safe number is 480 lift. 480 thou lift. That is the maximum. I wouldn't go over that, and that's in a perfect world. I wouldn't, that's, you know, that's at the tip top. I know some guys might run more than that, but what your issue lies is, I'll show you right here, is when you're pushing more than that. I'm gonna push this as far as I can, simulating as if you're lifting, so go there. I can't push no more, because it's not the valve, it's not anything that's maxed out, it's the rocker arm. So you can see the valve is free to go down further, and by the looks of it, the rocker arm or the retainer wouldn't be quite close to the seal yet. So what you're limiting here is the actual rocker arm travel. So 480 thou on a perfectly set up Vortec head, you should be able to do with the stock rocker arms, given you don't have some crazy spring rate, very mild build. But I would always recommend going to a long slot stamped rocker at the minimum. Okay, so 1.6 rocker arms on your Vortec head. The stock rocker arm ratio is 1.52. You can go to a 1.6 rocker arm, no problem. I've done it lots of times on the Vortec heads. But what you want to do with a 1.6, especially, or anytime you're running over 500 lift, is you see this push rod hole here? See how this one has been drilled out and it's bigger than this stock size? What I always do when I build my small block, any Vortec head actually, it's just something I do no matter how much lift I'm doing. And whoever did this set of heads, wasn't me, this was off my C1500, and you know, there was some kind of weird stuff. But one thing they did do right is they did elongate or drill out these push rod holes. And what I do is just use a 1/2 inch drill bit, get a real good drill bit, and just nice and slow. It actually drills pretty easily, and you just follow the same angle as you know, the stock hole, and you just do a 1/2 inch drill bit all the way through. It's that easy. Like I said, usually not an issue until you're running about 500 lift, over 500 lift, or you're running the 1.6 rocker arms, because it does kind of move things a little bit closer when you're doing that. But 1.52 is the standard on a Vortec head, and what you could do is you can run a 1.6 rocker arm. And what that does is it essentially increases your lift without changing the cam. And what a rocker arm ratio, excuse my crude picture here, is your distance from your center point of your ball or your rocker stud to the front tip is one measurement, and from your center of your rocker stud to the push rod ball is another measurement, and you take Y from here to here, divide it by X from here to here. That gives you a rocker ratio. And like I said, the stock one is 1.52 approximately. There's always a little bit of variation in them if you actually check them. What you can do, if you want to figure out how much lift you'll have with a 1.6 rocker ratio, and you know what you have right now. So say you have, for example, a 500 lift cam. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 500 lift right now and divide it by 1.52, which should be your stock rocker arm ratio. Just make sure that's actually what you have. So you take your 500 lift, divide it by 1.52, that gives you 0.329 lift, okay? So now take that 3.92 and times it by the 1.6 ratio. And now you have 526. So you went from a 500 lift cam to a 526 lift cam. So approximately, usually that's about right with a small block, you know, they're all around there. So expect, you know, 25 to 30 thou increase in lift without touching the cam. So all you're doing is changing that rocker ratio. But, you know, give in mind, make sure that first off, your coil springs can, you know, account for that extra lift. If they're already on the limit and you're adding another 26 thou, the coil springs aren't going to be happy. Also make sure, you know, if you have a high compression motor, that you're not going to have issues with piston to valve clearance. And make sure whenever you're changing anything on the valve train, make sure your push rods are the right length, because as you start moving this around, especially here for this distance to this distance, because this is what rides on the tip of the valve, you start moving that around, you might have to change your push rod length to kind of help compensate for the 1.6 rocker arm and keep that tip of the valve and the tip of the rocker arm dead center. So there you go, guys. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments if I missed something that you might have a question about Vortec heads and the rocker arms. Like I said, if you're running over 500 lift, it's always a good idea to drill these to 1/2 inch, the push rod holes, just to make sure you give yourself some clearance. It's, you know, you don't want to start bending push rods and stuff if you start hitting the side. Really important if you're running 500 lift, and really important if you're running a higher ratio rocker arm. Again, what the stock rocker arms don't run over 480 lift, and even then, it's probably a good idea to upgrade while you're here. You don't want to have issues down the road. And then always make sure you check for your rocker arm to retainer clearance or keeper clearance, and make sure that you got at least 10 or 15 thou in between there at all times during the whole duration of the lift. You keep all that stuff, you know, all in spec, all, you know, clearance everywhere. You should have no issues with your rock arms, and you won't bend push rods. You won't have any issues like that or dropping valves, because no one wants that. So anyway, drop me a comment if you have any more questions, and please like and subscribe. I'm putting out more of these Vortec videos. People seem to really enjoy the Vortec heads as much as I do, and they have a lot of questions, you know, and you can build a nice motor without spending a fortune. Thanks, guys.